my delight to be here talking to you about relationships, connection, authenticity, self-mastery, and all those things. That's my jam. And I believe that once we get it right, once we take the right viewpoint, the right perspective on our connection capabilities, on creating relationships, then we can make better partnerships, we can make better families, we can make better workplaces, and we can make better communities. So I don't think that I'm overblowing it when I say that this work not only changes lives, it changes whole communities. It changes the structure, because when we're able to be our authentic selves, and when we're able to translate accurately who we are, who we know ourselves to be, and we're able to listen and understand others, our connection, all the connections we make are solid, and it feels really, really good. And from that basis of feeling really good, we can be creative, we can be loving, we can be all the things that we came here to be. We can fulfill our potential. So, all that being said, I would love to, well, at the moment, last point, at the moment, I support women in magnetizing and co-creating exceptional love relationships. That's the main body of my work right now. Although there is an overarching theme, that's what I'm focused on right now in 2023 at the time of recording this. So let me get straight into it, the relationship excellence framework. So the underpinnings of it, if you like, are something that I created about 5 years ago called the spiral process. And there are 4 main elements to the spiral process. And they are your intention, your body wisdom, your mind mastery, and your conscious communication. Now, your levels of each of these will determine how much joy and satisfaction and effectiveness you're able to access in your relationships. I've been working with this framework for a long time. Even before I defined it, this is the way that I was working. And it took me a long time to actually extrapolate the bones of how I was working with my clients, how I was helping to achieve the successes that were achieved. And the spiral process was the outline of that. So now, 5 years later, an opportunity has arisen for me to get even more detailed about the tools that I present to my clients to use that help them implement the main phases of the spiral process. And there are 12 in total. What I want to do today, because I haven't got time to explain to you how we implement them, I just want to introduce it as a framework so that if you want to take notes, you can run with it and you can take it away and you can start to use it, start to look at all these different segments, and you can maybe score them. You could score how well you feel you're doing on each segment. And it will identify for you pretty effortlessly where you need to train your attention, which pieces need some extra love and care, which pieces need some more skill, all of those things. So you can use it for like a self-diagnosis. One of the good things that having a framework provides is clarity, because when we have clarity, then it's easier for us to know what to do next. And when we know what to do next, then we come out of any fear response, any fight or flight, any freeze or fawn, and we focus on the next task at hand. And this is just a human behavior basic. This is how we operate, and this is how we work most effectively. So once you know where your attention needs to go, then you've got the skills. Even if you know that you don't have the skills, you know that you can go off and find the resources that you need so that you do have the skills. But first of all, you must have the clarity. So in order to have the clarity, let me continue and explain to you the 12 tools that you will need to mark out and maybe score your capability right now, a snapshot only, for relationship excellence. So if you're struggling in any of your relationships, whether it's a love relationship, whether it's in your family, whether it's with a client, if you're having challenges and you're struggling, then have a listen to this process and framework that I'm going to present to you. And afterwards, when you have the whole picture, maybe you could place yourself on the axis there and just figure out, oh yeah, maybe this bit would help me. Maybe I need to up my score a little bit on this bit. And at the very end, I'm going to give you a very brief direction on how you can connect with me if you want to go deeper with this process. Okay, so the spiral process is the overarching view. It's the scaffolding, shall we say, that holds all of this up. And there are 4 pieces to that. Your intention. This is always where we begin. What is your intention? Secondly, your body wisdom. Thirdly, your mind mastery. And fourthly, your conscious communication. So the 12 tools are actually broken down into those 4 pieces of the spiral process. So step 1, intention of the spiral process, has 3 distinct tools. When you master capability of these 3 tools, then you have up-leveled your ability in that area. So I'm going to look over here a little bit because it's on my wall in my office. So the first tool is something that I've been using for a long time in one of my self-study programs and in my one-to-one work with clients, and it's called Desire Dive. And it entails you getting so clear and radically honest about what your desire actually is. And when you choose your desire and you attune to your desire, instead of any obligation, it actually changes your perspective and it opens up opportunities for you. So you start seeing places where your desire can actually be made manifest, or where you can move towards it. So it informs the direction that you take. And often as women, I just want to add this in because it feels important. Often as women, maybe this is true for guys, I don't know, I'm not a man, but we are definitely given the conditioning that it's not okay to want. It's all right to need things, because every human needs things. We need air, we need food, we need water and sleep, but it's not okay to want things. And you may be familiar with the parenting phrase of "I want, doesn't get," which still gives me chills because I just think it's so damaging to say that to a child. But it is what it is. So befriending our desire and coming back into close contact with it and actually learning how to embrace it and to own it fully can be a piece of work on its own. And it's only when we get behind it and when we claim it that we can have a good chance of magnetizing it towards us. So Desire Dive is the very first tool. The second tool is values identification. Now, this is something that can be easily misunderstood. And it's important that we get a good grasp on what our values are, because it informs what sort of connections and relationships we're available for. So your values can stem from the very essence of who you are. And before you know who you are, they will often be informed by your conditioning. So you will pick up values from the way that you were brought up, either the culture you were brought up in or the family that you were brought up in. When we start to know who we are and we start to get really congruent with our essence, we start to really feel who we are, then we can get more accurate in the description of what our values may be. So for instance, I'll share with you my top 3 values. They are truth, and they are in order. Truth at the top, enjoyment second, and freedom third. Now, they are in order for a reason. So I don't want enjoyment at the cost of truth. I don't want it to be fake. I don't want it to not have any substance. So truth is my most important. And sometimes adhering to that top value of truth is not enjoyable. So do you see? It's like you have to play with these and you have to give them a hierarchy, give them priority. And once you get super clear on what they are, you will find, once you're living your values, you will start to attract connections that gravitate towards you, that gel with your values. And those that don't tend to fall away, almost without you having to do very much other than show up and just be 100% yourself. So values identification is tool number two. And it's really about understanding your fundamental drivers and your essence. And when you're living your values, you've got so much integrity. And it's just amazing, especially if you are a facilitator of any kind, then it makes you a really safe space to be around, because you are who you say you are. You walk your talk. So values identification is tool number 2. Tool number 3 is boundary mapping. So this is one of the pieces that I work with clients on quite intensively, because often women come to me and they are either still suffering from the fallout of not having good boundaries, or not not putting them into action. Because if there are no consequences for overstepping, it's not a boundary, it's a preference. So once you have your boundaries and you're clear with them, then you're owning your no. And when you do that, again, similar things happen. You tend to magnetize those towards you that will be respectful to your boundaries, and that will take no for an answer easily, and it doesn't have to feel like hard work. So yeah, creating your non-negotiables is essential to maintaining energetic hygiene and smoother, faster manifestation, so you can reduce self-sabotage and increase flow. So this is another part to this. When you have your boundaries, it's not just to do with people, connections with people, it's actually to do with what you want and what you're available for. If you think of it, this is a metaphor I sometimes use, if you think of it as you want to rearrange your living room, for instance, and you have a couch in there that is old, but you want a new couch. Well, you cannot put the new couch in until you've taken the old couch out, because there will be no room. So when you have good boundaries, and sometimes this happens, it's quite incredible when it does. When people move from not having firm, solid boundaries to actually installing some, often there's a lot of trash to be taken out. Okay, so there are often things that have been allowed to go on, connections that have continued to exist that just do not serve and are not aligned. So they all have to go out of the way first. And what happens then is your manifestations become swifter and smoother. So the things that you actually do want, and where you focus on your desire, it actually comes towards you quicker, because there is nothing that is not aligned that is in the way. And I know it sounds so simple as I'm explaining it, and it kind of is. It's simple, but no, it's not easy. So it's a process that we go through. But boundary mapping can be described as demarking your space and just protecting it. So it's like your territory, and you're protecting your territory with your boundaries, like fences, if you like. So that's tool number 3, which goes with intention. Now, tool number 4, we're moving through now on to step 2 of the scaffolding, the spiral process, which is body wisdom. The first tool in body wisdom is actually tool number 4, and that is nervous system care. So each person will need a different strategy for state management, because everybody has got a unique imprint of nervous system, what activates them, what soothes them, how they operate, what their set points are. And increasing your bandwidth and being able to remain present with high sensation is incredible, whether you're in relationship or not, because it means that you can handle hard challenge and still be okay and not completely lose it. And it also means that you can take more pleasure, and you can welcome in higher sensation of the good kind that you actually want as well. So both things are true, and only when we take really good care of our nervous system. So this tool is one that I love so much, because often we will have clear ideas of like, oh yeah, that feels horrible, yeah, I don't want to do that again, but we don't quite know what that is, and we don't quite know why it's making us feel so bad. And a lot of it is very physical. It's very practical and very physical. And when we start to get down to the description of that, what's actually happening in the body, what sensations are arising, it becomes a lot easier to manage. And it means that when we are in command of our nervous system, we start to know before, like ahead of time, we start to know, yeah, that's probably not a great situation for me to be in, because that's going to be so activating and I just don't have the resources today. And then we're becoming really self-responsible. We're becoming just amazingly well-resourced, well-rounded human beings who are generally a joy to be in relationship with, and very effective at being who they came here to be. So that's tool number 4. Tool number 5, accurate physical nourishment. This is another one that I think I call it juicy body in my signature program, which is the relationship program for single women. I've just changed the name of it which is why I didn't say the name. So yeah, when we have accurate physical nourishment, because the mind and body are two parts of the same system, what we do to one affects the other. So in this case, how we nourish our body affects how our mind works as well. And you really want the mind on your side, because when it's not on your side, it's just so difficult. And it means you have to dedicate a lot of resources to untangling and undoing the tales that your mind will weave. So when we have accurate physical nourishment, it means that our bodies are well fed and healthy and able to function optimally. Now, I use some of the ancient tools to support my clients in this particular area. So I look at Ayurveda, I look at traditional Chinese medicine, I look at the seasons, look at the constitution of each person, because again, we are each unique, and the way that we operate the best is different for everyone. So something that suits me so well and makes me feel alive and vibrant and just like, oh yes, might be really depleting for somebody else who has a different constitution. So again, the self-mastery piece here is the knowledge, the deep knowledge of yourself and of how you work in this 3D body on this human plane. And accurate physical nourishment is one of those, and it's very important. And if you have ever tried to have a conversation with somebody who is hungry or sick or just distracted, you will know it's really difficult, because the more well-resourced we are, the better we can connect with other people. So that's why this is all part of building exceptional relationships. We are responsible for our part in any relationship that we show up to. And if we are not well resourced, if we are stressed out, if our nervous systems are blown out and we don't have a clear idea of what we want, we don't know our desire, we're not sure on our intention, all those things, then we are confusing to be around, and we are very unlikely to manifest the outcome that we most want, because it becomes really random. So accurate physical nourishment was tool number 5. Tool number 6 is interpret the signals. Now, this is how we can translate the wisdom that our body delivers to us accurately, again, so that we can understand the messages it's trying to deliver to us. So learning the language that your body speaks and what it means, it gives you the added advantage that you can start to distinguish between what is a trauma response from a long time ago, and what is conditioning from how you were brought up, and what is a response to what's actually happening right now in the now moment. Because the subconscious and the body don't know the difference between, they don't understand time. They don't know the difference between now and what happened before, unless we make really good efforts to give them that information. So it's important for us, for the information coming the other way, for us to be able to understand the difference. Like, what is the difference? Is this something that reminds me of what happened before, so I'm having a massive reaction to it? Or is this something that feels stressful right now in the moment? And if that's so, can I self-soothe? Can I let the person know? That's tool number 6, interpret the signals. Now, tool number 7 we're moving into step 3 of the scaffolding, which is the spiral process. And step 3 is mind mastery embodied. So tool number 7 is learning the mind-body pathway. So I guess this is going the other way. This is learning how the mind stories actually impact your body. So the one we just described is how we interpret the body signals with the mind. This is more, how do the stories of the mind affect our body? So what story, what narrative is running in your brain, and what's that actually doing to your body? What effect is that having on you? The mind-body pathway is something that's very well described by the action of the vagus nerve as well. So the vagus nerve starts at the back of the throat and it runs all the way down to the major organs, goes all the way down to the pelvis. And it's something that is responsible for interpreting and delivering information up from the body and delivering signals down from the brain into the body. But it's an 80-20 pathway. So it's only 20% used in delivering messages from the brain to the body. The other 80% is bringing body information up to the brain and having the brain understand it. So understanding this pathway is essential in our quest to better understand ourselves, to better understand how we work, and to really take ownership of that, so that we know when something in our peripheral vision happens and we are having a response or a reaction to it, we know that that belongs to us, and we know it's either a case of firming a boundary or getting clearer on a desire as to where we place people, things, situations in relation to ourselves. Sometimes people are in the wrong place. So sometimes people are too close to us when actually a more accurate positioning would be a little bit further away, just because of the way that we work and how we're built and how they are. So we're really respecting and being aware of sovereign choice in the doing of that, in the placing of ourselves and in the placing of other people. So the mind-body pathway is tool 7. Tool 8 is a tool that I have included in my signature program again, and it's about clearing residue. So the tool that I defined is called pulse practice, and it's a pussy stroking practice that brings you back into your body and helps to sift all the residue and bring it right to the surface in order that it can be transmuted back to pure life force. Okay, so being able to identify and to move stuck energy is an essential part in keeping our channel clear, so that we can access deeper intuition, so that whatever message needs to come through us can come through clearly, and in order that we can connect with people without residue. So all that means is, if you do this practice on a daily basis, you come to any connections, any situations, any scenarios clearer than you would have been at the end of the previous day. If you think of it like washing your hands. So if you go a whole day and you drive your car and you go out and you go to the shop and you meet different people, you shake hands with people, by the end of the day, you're going to want to wash your hands. Otherwise, all of that residue from all the day's activities is going to remain on your hands. Now, it doesn't mean it's bad necessarily. It doesn't mean that. It just means that it's going to be there. It's going to be stuck there. And when we have stuck residue in our bodies, in our beings, it acts like a filter. So it means that we don't see things as clearly as we would without that residue. It means that sometimes it accumulates and it changes the way that we take in information, and it changes our understanding of people, things, and scenarios, because it is a filter. So being able to clear that residue on a daily basis, just the residue of being alive, of being a human, is so important, because it allows us to see clearly and to transmit clearly as well. That's tool number 8. Tool number 9 is belief creation. Now, we've spoken a little bit about the weird narratives that the mind starts to give us sometimes. So sometimes the mind is just running a story in the background, and it's just happening, because that's what the mind does. It loves creating stories. It loves looking for problems, all those things. Occasionally, if we make it our business to, we can uncover belief that is not based in truth. It's not based on evidence. It is just a belief that is getting in the way of our intention. So when we start to install new empowering beliefs, then we begin to neutralize the limiting thoughts that come up, because we know we are bringing the unconscious into the conscious, and we know that that narrative is mostly not true. So whatever story that the mind is spinning for us about a scenario, about a person, about a relationship, we can install a belief to counteract that and to be like the antidote to that. And often our limiting beliefs, our limiting thoughts, again, they come from our conditioning. They come from past relationship pain. They can sound like, oh, I never get what I want. Oh, people always misunderstand me. I'm not good at putting my point of view across. It could be anything like that. And unless we look for the evidence of the opposite, they will just pop up in the background. You know, like when you go onto a dodgy website and you just get ads popping up all the time. That is what happens with your limiting beliefs, unless you take command of the situation and you decide that you're going to install some new beliefs from evidence. I have evidence that actually I am understood when I make myself clear. And I can do that easily, for instance. So you're freer to create your desires in new and easier ways once you've installed the supporting beliefs. Okay, that was tool number 9, belief creation. Tool number 10, we are moving on to step 4 of the spiral process, which is conscious communication. So tool number 10 is meta communication. This has literally changed my life. This is such an amazing tool. All it is, in the most basic of language, is telling people how you feel about how you are feeling. Okay, sounds so basic, and it kind of is. And I call it the bridge to intimacy. So sometimes it feels too much of a stretch, too activating, too difficult to just come out and say how you feel. So you can start building the bridge to intimacy, to saying how you feel, by getting meta. And when you start to practice meta communication, you talk about how it makes you feel that you are feeling a certain way. So it could sound like, I really want to talk to you about X, but I feel really anxious to do it. I feel like you'll think I'm silly, or it just feels edgy for me and I feel a bit activated. That's meta communication. What that tends to do is it just humanizes. And 9 times out of 10, the other person has such compassion because of your honesty and because they recognize that human response of feeling a bit anxious or feeling a bit nervous or feeling a bit shy, and they can relate to it. So you're relating already, and you're on your way to intimacy. So that's tool number 10, and it's so important to co-creating exceptional relationships and being able to maintain them and sustain them, and to repair them when they mess up, as they will. They always do. It's just human. So building the bridge between uncomfortable truth and clear delivery to someone else so you can develop deeper intimacy. So I like to call it the bridge to intimacy. That's tool number 10, meta communication. Tool number 11 is the language of ownership. So becoming fluent in owning your experience makes a huge difference in how you are received when you're communicating with someone, whoever it might be. Again, colleague, family, lover. How much you can own your experience means, A, you're more likely to be able to be communicating without delivering any blame or shame on them, which is always a win, whichever angle you look at it from. Nobody wants to be the bringer of blame or shame. What else? Sorry, I'm just reading. So this process nurtures connection and understanding for easier repair and growth. What is the language of ownership? So again, it's very simple, and sometimes it takes a lot of practice because it's not what we've received so far in our life, or it's just not what we're used to. So it is the difference between, at its most basic level, you made me feel worthless, and when we had that conversation and you said X to me, I felt like I was worthless. So you're owning the fact that you made something mean something to yourself, which, like, it sounds so obvious, but that's what humans do. Of course, that's how we understand the world and how we understand each other. It's like, well, how does it relate to me? How do I understand that in terms of who I am and my map of the world? So the language of ownership is, there is so much nuance in it as well. And what it really starts with is the deep intention to be self-responsible and to build connection. So if building connection is the priority, that means that being right is not the priority. And I'm laughing because, yeah, that has been my story in the past, wanting to be right at all costs. But when connection and authenticity are your priorities, it's far easier then to go into the language of ownership when you're speaking. And it means that you're simultaneously holding space for your own experience, yourself, and for the other person, because you are mindful that you do not want to deliver blame or shame, and you want to come across accurately and be truthful in your expression of who you are and what your experience has been or is. So that was tool number 11, the language of ownership. Now, tool number 12, comparing maps. Now, this is so fascinating and was best explained to me, I think, years ago in an NLP training that I did, where we were asked to draw. Now, let me remember what word he used. I think it was something like draw a place or something like that. And it was basically, it was a word that had two meanings. So some people would draw a fish, some people would draw like a scenery, you know, like an actual place. And it was a very coarse description of this idea that everybody has a different map of the world. So how we understand something can be just so different to how someone else understands something. And it's, again, another exercise in taking perspective and really just taking a step back and being able to look from the back, from that space where you can see more, not less, and really being able to then respect and honor someone else's view as well as your own. So developing ways of appreciating each person's unique map of the world helps you to access a deeper bond. If you think about it, if you learn that somebody sees or feels your words in a certain way that is really unpleasant to them, you're probably going to want to just use different words because it would just make things easier. It's not really a why question. It's not like, oh, well, that's not what I meant. And, oh, why does that make you feel like this? I didn't mean that. It's not that, like, that's all just distraction. It's just like, well, in my world, actually, from my experience, in my map of the world, that means that. And from that point, you're almost getting to the bones of it so that you can then start to discuss a better way, because that's what you both want. That's what everyone wants. We all want connection. And things that get in the way of connection are annoying. And it's like a lot of people get distracted and caught on the why. That, like, why is this happening? Why do you feel like that? Why did you take offense? Well, it's not why. It's how can we do it better? How can we connect in a way that feels good to both of us? How can we both be authentic? And how can we both thrive in this situation? So that was tool number 12, comparing maps. I've no idea how long I've been talking for. Good, 46 minutes, 1 minute over. Okay, so they are the 12 tools that go with the 4-step scaffolding framework of the spiral process, which is intention, body wisdom, mind mastery, and conscious communication. All of these things create the relationship excellence framework that I use with all my clients. So whichever way you come to see me, whichever way you choose support, whether that's one-on-one, whether it's in a group, whether it's in my mastermind, whether it's through a self-paced program, this is the structure that is used to support you in your journey towards relationship excellence, so that you can really enjoy all the connections that are in your life and any new connections that you go on to make. I'm going to invite you to have a look at the link underneath here. And if you are curious about how I can support you further, what the options are, what the pathways are, to book a call and just jump on a quick 20 minutes with me, see if we gel, see if it feels like a good fit for you, and ask me all the questions. and I will be delighted to talk to you about it. I hope this has been useful for you, and I hope that you can take this and run with it and self-identify which piece requires your loving attention right now. Sending you so much love. Bye-bye.